everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield and I'm a professional dance choreographer and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States, and we are here with the ballet sector of Stage Fighter. I believe it is very similar to the Korean dance side of things based on context, where it's their own creations of choreo to the concept song, which is Swan, and we've already had the privilege of looking at the concept shoot, but I cannot tell you what choreography in particular was used for that, which makes it really fun for me here. Also, assumption I'm going in on is the individuals that we're going to be looking at are the first place holders of the audition process. Once again, projecting from what I was noticing from the Korean side, because I've already had the privilege of looking at that one at this point. Oh man, when I'm telling you I'm having a blast looking at all these little excerpts that Choom's releasing, it is truly a ton of fun for me, and I can't wait to continue diving into this with y'all. So let's go ahead and see what this is about. Ballet! Let's go. Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, that does feel familiar to me. Now, whether or not, I'm giving the impression that he's the one who choreographed it based on, this is choreo by Kim Yoo-chan, and Yoo-chan, he's Mr. à la séquence, which, side note, today, I tried doing the 32 count à la séquence challenge. I made it to 18 until I started, like, my head was spotting, but my eyes were getting dizzy. So maybe if you guys want it, I will attempt the 32 counts and y'all can watch me fail publicly. But I had a lot of fun trying that, just as a side note. Okay, all that to say though, the fact that they were to do that after bar work, all of the across the floors, everything they were asked to do, all the tours, oh my gosh, so impressive. We give our respects. Hats off to all of them. Okay, from here, starting to B+, we love it. This does, like I said, feel familiar. At least this little lift there, it feels familiar to me because when I was editing on the concept shoot, I remember this little jump in particular with the soloist. So I also am curious because Yoo-chan was not I don't think he was the angel nor the devil. So I'm curious if his choreo was selected, if this was in fact the case, but he wasn't able to be the one to do it. That would be wild, right? Oh, the drama of that. But I do like the structure of it. I think it's very fitting. It's nice. The passe on that's really nice. The grab is fun. I love the commitment with the head. And then he goes and he takes it Ranajam over, and he has a nice, beautiful bleed up, little élongé. And I love the form on it, and allowing the body to be influenced off of the arms is really fun too. The turn, way, and I love that. Shout out, side note, from our idol girl, Miyeon. I've already done a full marathon on that K-pop group, so if you're like, Jess, I want to see your K-pop analysis, I've done this group specifically, so that's really fun. Okay, moving on from there. So I love the lift on that. That's something that it's just a fingerprint to me. So whether there's an overlap or not, I don't know, but I really like that moment, which is cool. I like the extra breath of that is also nice. And then there's on Don, he pushes away, really nice contrast of the carriage of the chest as he reaches away, and a beautiful passe on the tail end of that. Then from there, turning it all the way around, really nice. And I love the range too on the single arm, and then choosing to use both of his arms on the tail end. And then he brings it over, has a nice moment, going up into a smidgen of a forced arch, twinkles the fingers in, then swan. I love that little embellishment on the tail end. That's super fun. Then from there, I love that where he goes and he crosses over. It's super fun. Definitely very stylized right there into a calypso. I've heard that. It could be called something else in the show. I've learned that there's kind of a couple of different verbiages that are being used. Seesaw is definitely one that's been used quite extensively. I've heard it called a switch leap, but it's a seesaw in the context of male ballet dancers when they're doing ballet. So that's with a switch, which is it's so cool to learn different names for things, because as a woman, I didn't learn that. You know, it's so cool. Anyway, so it's cool. The turn on that, I think, was he going in coupe? Possibly. Yeah, and the style on that is really hard to do, especially, you know, he's not spotting that. In figure skating, that's one thing, but in ballet, most of the time you spot. And so the fact that he's doing that, there's a lot of trust in his balance, and I know he's known for his turning. We've established that from the first episode and seeing him in his audition. But all of that, like, that's impressive, the fact that he's able to maintain that form without having to spot it all. It's great. I love, oh my god, look at the arabesque. Oh god, it's gorgeous. And the sustaining on that, it's stable, and that's what you look for. He didn't fall out of it. It was an intentional choice when he came down, and those are really beautiful elements of balance that you want to showcase. And I love this rotation on it too, and the lift, oh my gosh, with this extra, oh my god, with the arm melting. That's a really good contender. Does it feel similar? Yes. Could that be a reason why I'm a fan of it? Possibly. You know, I'm not going to be subject against that, but I really liked it. I think the structure is very fitting to the track, where it has elegance and you're recognizing nice, you know, moments in the track as well, which is cool. Here we go. Kim Tae-sok. A lot of stylized hands here. Ooh. Ooh! They didn't have enough room there. I like the style choice of that. It's cool, but like, look, do you see what I'm talking about? That one's going to. Okay, cool. It is what it is. Okay, from the top, I do feel a smidgen disconnected with this one, but it could be a timing or audio overlay. We may chalk it up to that as well. Nothing crazy there. It does feel like he's being awoken, right? Like, you know, a villain is entering into their villain era, right? Kind of feels like that. The reach is nice. I love, honestly, come on, like, love me some articulated arms. Of course, we would call that more of an isolated wave is what I would give that, more than articulation. But for ballet, we're going to call it that. The reach up is nice. So all of this here does remind me of Swan Lake. So I see the influence on that. Very heavy on the upper body, and at least on the arms, in justifying our perspective, which is light. That's totally fine. You have a little passe. And it comes up, fly. So of course, I like the lifts of the arms and the openness of the carriage of our upper body is really nice to see. The ton, I love the inside turn, is really nice. The kick, beautiful. I mean, was that just a, it was just a grand pas mal? Let me see. Yeah, I mean, could have, because of our vantage point, I don't know if we were developing that, grand pas mal or something along those lines. I love that back, that just with the bringing it up to the passe from the back was really nice. Black Swan, that there, it didn't feel like we recognized the end of the phrase, the Black Swan, like we saw with our first soloist. So that would be my note there. It felt a little bit, it felt like an incomplete phrase would kind of be my note there. And then remember, I said this about the, I know he's about to do like a turning, it's like a turning, oh my gosh. Jess, use your brain. It's a turning seesaw. So a tour seesaw, would they call it that? I'm just trying to use context because a tour jeté, but it's a seesaw. So it's not just a jeté because there's a split that happens with the turn. So maybe it's that. I don't quite know. But anyway, side note. But I did mention this in the Korean dance side that a lot of these dancers are practitioners of the craft. That's why they're there. We love seeing it. But also, it's a different skill set being a practitioner than it is with the skill set of choreographing or creating sequences of movement in a way that matches on music or matches a particular schema of criteria that you want met. So in the context here, the natural assumption I'm operating in is off of what's been shown to us, which is the concept shoots. So this choreo is meant, I'm assuming, for the soloist for the concept shoot. So who's going to have theirs selected? I mean, for me, my gut tells me the first guy is because it feels the most familiar, but we still have our third guy to look at. And based on what the thumbnails, those looked mad similar to me, which is, it makes me very intrigued, right? But, and you want to factor in, it's not just about doing the movement well, but it's about how does it phrase with your music. Are we ignoring our music? Are we making it a member or a priority into our movement quality, which in the context of choreography, it needs to be a priority because you're tailoring your concepts to the general public. And I mentioned that with Korean dance as well. I don't know which one's getting released first, but I'm just mentioning it in both, so just in case you stumble on one versus the other. You don't want to neglect your music, especially if it was made tailored to your show like this. You want it to matter, right? You don't want it to just fall on deaf ears and be background. You want it to be a part of your storytelling, and so having choreography that helps make it easier on the viewer to hear and listen for those details, it just makes life a lot easier on all fronts. So that would be my note here. That was really nice. I love that choice. But then he did a little shen in the prep. I think it was going for a double tour of some kind, but it wasn't quite as full out. I think because he would have run into our local coffee table, and we don't want that to happen. And I like his abstract finish. It's really fun. Swan with his hand definitely gives that dying swan vibe, which is super cool. But I'm very intrigued on this third one. Is it, yeah, like, is it the same as what we already kind of saw? I don't know. Shin Min Kwan. Ooh! Pretty! Towards the tay. Really nice. Ah. Beautiful. Wow. That's cool. That's actually really cool, honestly. Who is this? They said this was a... This is Shin Min Kwan. I don't recognize him. Maybe it's just because of the vantage point. That's fine. Okay. And I love this little extra embellishment on the wrist. It's really nice. And I love just, guys, the power of a pointed foot goes such a long way. I'm telling you. It's beautiful. A lot of tone setting is kind of what I would call this, where we're establishing our storyline, where we're showing here's who I am, here's what I want you to be prepared for. Boom, let's go. And from here, I love that little, we call that a drag turn, compass turn, something along those lines. And then we have another extra reintroduction. And right there is your saute. Love that. I think that is a cabriole, double cabriole. I've been trying, guys. When I tell you I beat myself up so bad about not knowing a freaking double cabriole when they mentioned it in the episode, I was like, yo. So I called it a beat, which is still technically correct, but the actual term is called a cabriole, a single boom and a double boom boom, and that's what I think it is there. So that's what we're gonna go off of it. And then right there, I love that and how he set up into just a jeté, which is really nice. And then he resets the passe in the back. I love that part right there. And another, this is the land of the double cabrioles is what this feels like. I love that arabesque. Black swan, beautiful. And I love how he goes in the passe and he goes boom right there into an arabesque. Beautiful. Into a torchete. Felt pretty marked, but whatever. It's fine. Yeah, a lot of these do give that impression of, look at the choreo, you know, I can go full out whenever. And it does feel low-key kind of an across the floor, more so than it feels like an abstract conceptual piece. I would say the first one does kind of showcase that, which could be a reason maybe why it was selected. I don't know. It does feel familiar, so I really do feel like that was the one that was picked. I don't know, though. Jury's still out. It is what it is. That's life. I'm a commentator. We're here for it. But this, I like the choices. The turning, nice little turning jeté. Oh, they called that, what did they call that? I know how it's spelled. M-A-N-E-G-E. Manege or something like that. That word, that was what that was, and that's what they called it, and that is what it's called. I can't. We call that a turning jeté, just with a straight leg. So it's another way to call it, but, But I like the fact that we saw it here. It really does feel like a lot of elements that were in that audition process, so I feel like he applied a lot of it here, which could work in his favor, I would feel. But it did, because of just a lot of it just felt very technical versus artistic and hybrid, which I think is kind of, when you're choreographing, you want to try to find a middle ground, because the type of track this is hybrid. Just like in the Korean dance scene, it is a hybrid track. So you want to showcase the elements of the fundamentals of the style, which I feel all of them are competent in, but just making it to where it matches the aesthetics so the general public can fall in love with that style too. So it's like understanding as an artist where the middle ground is. So that was a turning jeté or a manege or something like that, and then I like how he finished with his ending pose, and then he drops down. So it's similar to like that dying swan that you would see at the end of Swan Lake, but here it definitely had a more like wave presence and texture about it, which was cool. It was nice. Yeah, we're totally here for that. So out of the three, I personally would opt for this first one. Is it because we've already kind of seen it? Maybe. We're not gonna be shocked off of that if that is an influence, but I personally do prefer this one out of the three after kind of just doing an overview on all of them. But man, am I excited just to continue to uncover, see what the contemporary style is all about, how they structured it in comparison to ballet, and then also being introduced to the Korean dance side a little bit more intentionally. Oh, guys, I am living in this era of the show. This is so freaking cool. So I'm in different clothes. That is because I missed one in my initial reaction analysis. So we are dialing it back, taking a look at this one too before the outro rolls. Let's go ahead and enjoy. Let's go. And it's the one that our soloist, our devil soloist, Was. It's this one. I was waiting for this one. It never happened. Wow. Beautiful. Wow. That's freaking awesome, honestly. Okay, let's talk about it. I'm so glad Patreon caught it, so now I get to get these all fixed for YouTube. So y'all thank Patreon for that. And also the fact the poll voted for the Korean to get released first. Okay, right here from the top. So majestic. So, I love it. I love this so much. So if it's not the very first one, I would totally opt for this one. This one's freaking sick. Arabesque, gorgeous. And right there into a, Padishah. Come on now. And I love the extra élongé, the beauty of the extra breath on that was so fun. Really cool. Notice a stylized turn on that. He was operating with a bent standing leg, but that was more of a stylized choice, not a compensation choice. And I believe he was still fighting for a releve of some kind. Of course, to maintain balance, he drops down. And I love that he has that boom right there. As you kick in that bass, he accents it with his leg. I love it in the extension. From there, it does feel like he was about to go into a tour jeté or a tour, turning ciseaux, something along those lines. But he didn't opt for that, which I think is fine. He goes into an aggressively high ensemble, which I don't mind. It's fun. Break up, Dawn. He feels very intentional listening to the words. I actually prefer this very much so on the musicality front. It feels intentional, it feels majestic, it feels like a solo. Does that make sense? Which I love. The turn is nice, that little extra breath on that's beautiful. Then from there, he's prepping. I think that would be my one note to this, is the prep that he's doing to get into some of his choices. Like, it's an aggressive prep for an ensemble, for my preference. Here, it's an aggressive prep to get into just a jeté. Now, it's still a beautiful grand jeté, but it's still a prep that I easily clocked, that I'm like, okay, I'm expecting something large here because of the aggressiveness of the intention of the prep. And so that would be my only note. Part of me in choreography is you don't want to, a lot of times in stylized choices, like I would use the context here as an example of that, you want these types of preparations to be kind of hidden. But when I'm talking about like variations, or you're talking about an actual ballet, it's very clear what when you're seeing a prep, you know what they're about to do, which is, there's the beauty in that. But this track is hybrid. This concept of the show is very hybrid in nature, where you're tying into your general public, and they are a factor into the viewership rating of this, right? Or the success of the franchise sector of the show. And so you do want there to be some degree of element of surprise in some of our choices, but also in the lens here with ballet performers, a lot of them are not in the positions of choreographers as much as they are as practitioners and dancers. Now, it's going to come up to the preference of the individual on whether or not they prefer to do choreography or just dance. It really just depends for me. I always wanted to be a choreographer first, more so than a dancer, but that's just, there's a ton of personal reasons behind that. But so in the lens here, I can't tell you unless we ask them that question and we hear from them, right? But in a nutshell, I really do like the fact that we have this breath, majesticness about it. It feels very full, and it feels that we're filling up our music appropriately. That black swan right there to an arabesque, beautiful, into a prep, into a turning. It does give me the impression of a calypso. He doesn't really like arch it in the back, but God, it's beautiful, beautiful. And then it goes down, down. I love just the stillness of that moment. It's really beautiful. And it goes up really nice on the back extension, really nice. Then he brings it over, really nice. Black swan, we're here for it. Now, could this be something that was also in it? Possibly, I don't know, but this is freaking fire, and I'm giving my official note going off of what I looked at last night to here. I would have to say this one is my preference on a music ear, but I also really like the structure of the very first one I watched. So Mr. Turning, Ala Sekon, and then Mr. Kyung Ho, who is our Group A leader. He was my top pick for that whole audition process. Love it. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. I have mentioned this before, but I'll always continue to mention it just in case. I have been actively reacting to the show as well as doing analysis on whatever the CHUM releases on the full cam side, just so we can take a more analytical look, whether it's as a layman on the Korean dance side or as more of an educator side, on what I look for within my own students or some things that kind of stand out from a general public standpoint as well with the show. And if you're a practitioner of ballet, contemporary, Korean dance, I want to hear from you, especially if I'm going to be taking a look at material that is in reference to those styles. I want to be able to celebrate the craft, and if there's extra knowledge and tidbits you want to enter into the comments, I would love to pin it so others are made aware of it as well. If I give the wrong terminology, I apologize. Please keep in mind the majority of what I look at on YouTube has been more on the street dance side of things, and that is where I am an active practitioner and actively as somebody who choreographs and educates those in the masses. It is tailored to that, but also I do work with dancers who specialize in these disciplines outside of Korean dance. We're working on it though. On a day-to-day basis. So I have a lot of empathetic lens from a teacher standpoint in that realm. So I'm excited to meet a lot of you guys along the way. And if you're a contestant on the show, I want to hear from you too. I want to give you a shout out. So you guys know me, I know you. I'm Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.